Hi everyone, welcome back to Demand Decoded. Thanks for tuning in and taking the time to join us. And today we're going to be diving into HubSpot's State of Marketing 2024 report and discuss what some of the stats mean for marketers and give some of our take on it, basically. It covers things like where marketers are spending their budget and resources, which channels are hitting or missing the mark, how they're using AI, the social landscape, and a lot more. So we're going to dig into all of that and give some hot takes and see what we do agree and do not agree on. So it should be interesting. Bill, another year and another State of Marketing report is here. What were your initial thoughts on it?
Yeah, as you say, another year, another report. And the State of Marketing report is always interesting. HubSpot never fails to pose the interesting questions that matter to marketers, and to gather an awful lot of very useful and interesting data. The thing that stood out for me this year, though, as we went through it to see what our findings and takeaways from it were that more than ever, the fact that it pools B2C and B2C B2B and B2C responses together has produced some really interesting results that I think need scrutinizing before you act on them, because B2C marketing and B2B marketing have their similarities, but also have huge differences: where they take place, how they take place, channels that are effective, the purchase price and value of things being sold. And so this time, perhaps even more than in years before, seeing the results, really showed, I think, that if you can't distinguish which results are B2C and which are B2B, and you act on them, across the board, you might make some missteps. So throughout our review of it and throughout our response, we've always been looking to say, well, can we confidently deduce that this is skewed towards one audience by the responses of one audience or another? It would be really nice, and I think it makes me wonder whether there's how much value there is in creating a combined report when the advice needed by both communities is so different. But it would be wonderful to see the B2C and B2B data separated out. And I feel like one year that was the case, but it's not this year.
Yeah. So I hope we're not kind of saying, don't listen, don't read the report. It's still valuable. So, don't just switch off.
No, and we're going to try and indicate where we feel confident that it's a B2B specific outcome versus a B2C specific outcome. And I think you can be, but you've just got to be of the mindset that the surveyed sample combines the both.
Yeah, well, actually, I thought I'll just bring that up.
Okay.
Just before we get in. So the survey, it was surveyed in September 2023 with a total of 1,400 global B2B and B2C marketers across industries. Countries represented were Australia, Canada, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Japan, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Norway, Singapore, Sweden, United Kingdom, and United States. So yeah, quite a big range in there. I'm not going to dive into all the industries. It's a lot. So yeah, a lot of kind of generic data and widespread, I would say. So a good sample, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So yeah, let's get into things and share some thoughts. If you are watching live, by the way, we'd also love to hear your thoughts as we go too. So if you do agree or disagree with us, then, let us know. It'd be really interesting to hear your thoughts too on these things.
Absolutely.
Right. So let's bring up the State of Marketing report. Right, so we've got some intro here. Yeah, so here's the things that it's going to go through, kind of in a funnel kind of shape, I would say, like in that kind of journey: awareness, engagement, personalization, efficiency, and growth. And then that's broken out into a few different areas. So I'm just going to skip past some of this introductory
preamble
stuff and get into the juicy stats. Right. So the first thing that caught our eye and I think is worth discussing is the goals, challenges, and trends that have been presented here and the reports that go along with that. So what do you think to this, Phil? Which channels have resulted in the biggest ROI this year? So we've got website, blog, SEO at 16%. Social media shopping tools like Instagram Shop, I'm assuming TikTok Shop would be included in that, 16% too. Paid social media content at 14%. Email marketing at 14%. And content marketing at 14%. Of an even split there.
Yeah, it's an interesting set of results, isn't it? And it leads me to think several things. I mean, first of all, I think marketers have a predisposition to be always looking for the next thing, the new thing, the shiny thing that's going to somehow transform their results. We've all felt the feeling that we're missing out on a channel or a tactic or a strategy that we need to just discover, and then everything will be wonderful. So to see website, blog, and SEO so highly rated, even before we tried to determine whether it's B2C or B2B leaning, it just kind of flies in the face of everything that we're kind of told sometimes as marketers, that certain things are waning or dying, and you got to be investing in new technology and new solutions to continue to sustain your results. And I think as a result, even marketers sometimes, what they say are their primary concerns, and what they say are their, the things that they're most interested in learning or looking into, can differ really dramatically from the things that their results show them are performing. So, we've long believed in the power of the website to help B2Bs grow their pipeline. We think that blogging and SEO has still got a huge amount of value to offer a lot of businesses, not all, but a lot of them. We're certainly seeing continued excellent results from, strategic content creation that has buyers and SEO in mind. So I think I'm pleased actually to see that so highly rated. On the flip side of that, it looks like all of these things are equally effective, and so everybody should do more.
Yeah,
but that can't be the case. We don't think, right?
No, it is a good point. And some of this does surprise me, to be fair. Some of it doesn't surprise me. Like you say, I'm not really surprised to see website, blog, SEO up there. I think despite what people say, they almost don't, it's not the sexy thing anymore to be doing. So people don't want to kind of shout about it as being the thing that's working, because it's just that tired old technique, but it still works, right? So not surprised to see that there. Social media shopping tools, Instagram Shop, TikTok Shop, that kind of thing. I'm not surprised to see that so high either, but that is well, it is 100% B2C. I don't think there's no way really that B2B buyers are buying through social media shopping tools directly on that platform,
or that B2B marketers are seeing success, to this extent in those channels. No way.
I simply just cannot see that. It's too much of like an impulsive place to go and buy from. I think, and B2B buying journeys and cycles are just too complex to be using that kind of channel. Can't see that.
Right away, we see the need to look carefully at and try and get a sense of who's producing these results within the sample set.
Yeah, but for B2C, like, that makes total sense, right?
Yeah.
Paid social media content, I could see that working across both B2B and B2C. It seems to have ramped up in both areas, and you're seeing more and more marketers invest in content creation, the quality of that, and the distribution of that too, like coming from both angles here. Email marketing's a funny one. It is a funny one because it does come up in almost every B2B survey, actually, as well as B2C. So clearly there's some success being had here in both areas. I think I would wager it's more towards B2C because, again, you've got so many emails in B2C that do kind of work, like abandoned carts and discount codes and promos that kind of lead to immediate purchase, and you can have ROI from it. Haven't seen a lot of it work in B2B necessarily. When I think of email marketing, like, yeah, promos and discounts for large B2B purchases, they're not impulsive things, so can't be influenced in that way. And like lead nurturing emails and things like that simply just don't work.
Yeah, they just get...
Yeah, and content marketing at 14% doesn't surprise me either. I mean, I see everyone invested in that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose, one of the things that you can't possibly determine from the results of a survey like this is how are the respondents evaluating their ROI? And that can be deceptive at times. Return on investment isn't always revenue in the measurement. It isn't always pipeline. And that leads me to wonder about, paid social media content. We've seen the value of that in B2B, but, there's directly attributable ROI isn't necessarily always the thing to go for, because the performance-based approach to advertising in B2B doesn't necessarily unlock tremendous value. You're normally better off using it to create awareness, affinity, trust. So the direct relationship to ROI isn't always crystal clear to people. So there's some interesting nuance to that. But yeah, largely we see, and perhaps besides email marketing, where you really do wonder who's seeing success with that channel, given the disaster zone that is the average B2B buyer's inbox. There's a lot of sense to these results.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get on to the next page, which kind of follows on from that. Well, at least that kind of broad section anyway. So we've got things in here like marketing challenges, trends that are delivering ROI, things like that. Right, so should we get into this first one? Marketers' challenges. So marketers face challenges with generating traffic and leads at 15%, keeping up with trends at 15%, understanding customers and their needs 14%, having low quality data 14%, achieving sales and marketing alignment 14%. Wow, that seems like a very even spread.
Doesn't it just? Yeah. Mostly there's a common theme there, I think, which is, marketers struggle to do marketing that is successful at generating the result they want, and having a really good understanding of your customer and your need, and acting upon it in the way that you execute to generate the right traffic, to generate leads that close, which, most top of the funnel leads don't.
Yeah.
And conversely, that looking like low quality data to you, which probably is, they're all sort of interlinked, I think, and are the pursuit of good marketing. So I suppose in a way it's good to see those being the challenges. Keeping up with trends sticks out to me.
Yes,
and I think marketers ought to give themselves a break in that regard, and not be led by the industry and vendors and hype cycles and influencers and everything they see, because the key trends aren't changing that rapidly, are they?
No, especially in B2B as well. Like, as we know, it's always kind of lagging. B2B marketing changes slower than B2C anyway. So it might be slightly influenced in the B2C space. I would say things move faster. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, the things that work for some time before the next kind of thing comes along that's working. So actually keeping up with trends and being, totally on the nose with those things probably isn't as important as people might think. Just do the things that work for you and keep doing those.
Yeah. We are all, all marketers, our B2B marketers, are bombarded with messages about new tools that they must implement, new solutions that they must connect and integrate. And, it's an onslaught and it's constant, but it isn't necessarily a reflection of, the true state of the industry. After all, these businesses are, need to generate MRR for themselves. And so it's in their interest to convince us that they are the next big thing that's essential to successful marketing. But, the buyer behavior, which is the North Star for marketing, I think, is what it is. And, no amount of shiny new tools that call themselves the next cutting edge trend are going to fundamentally change your ability to understand your customer and market to them.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to this next one. Marketing trends that deliver ROI. I like this. I like this a lot, actually. These trends have generated strong results for marketers. So I'm assuming the survey here is saying that these trends that have happened are delivering good ROI. So short form video is first at 17%, content showing brand values 13%, influencer marketing campaigns at 12%, selling on social media apps 12%, mobile friendly website 11%. Strange one. But straight away,
top three. So top three ring true, make a lot of sense, and we concur, right? Short form video is the right form video for a lot of platforms, and we're seeing, not just ourselves but across the industry, the positive impact of creating video content in the first place and presenting it in short forms on the channels that your buyers are in.
Yeah, well, the thing is, every channel wants short form video now, almost. Right. So if you're not producing short form video, I would say start producing short form video, because people are consuming that in almost every single channel, and your buyers are likely to be in one of those at least. So actually, whilst I was looking at this, I dug into the stats on where people are consuming content in terms of social channels. So people are consuming most content on TikTok, right? And that is short form video content. So 95 minutes per day are spent consuming content on TikTok. The closest to that is YouTube, and that's 74 minutes a day. I would argue YouTube still leans more towards long form video as well, rather than short form, like 1 to 3 minute clips, although they're trying to do that with shorts. They're just not there yet and competing with TikTok. So yeah, interesting stuff.
Yeah, albeit at the total mass market level. And again, absolutely, if you slice it down to what's effective at reaching your ideal B2B customer, you might see a different set of results in terms of where to prioritize. But yes, short form video in huge demand, lots and lots of places where people are consuming it, and a huge amount of time going into it. So, and I think as well, it plays into the next point about brand value, where in the morass of marketing messages and noise, and now AI generated or potentially AI generated averageness, showing your true self, showing your opinion, your beliefs, your credibility, and your humanity is a really powerful tool in B2B, not just B2C. So I think content that shows your brand values, in the sense that you show people what you stand for, what you believe in, and what you're prepared to say on subjects, is a really, really good way to stand out, cut through, and create resonance with your buyer. And it's becoming more and more important.
Yeah, and I'd kind of say that influencer marketing campaigns almost follow that same trend as well, because you're looking for that human connection with, influencer. This one I'm not too sure about for B2B, if I'm totally honest. I don't think it's there yet. I don't think influencers particularly exist, to be honest, in B2B spaces. I think people that have large followings are just simply that. They are professionals with large followings and a good point of view.
Yeah.
I don't think they would consider themselves influencers in the slightest.
No, an influencer anyway has come to mean something that perhaps isn't the original meaning of the word. It isn't practical to be an influencer in the influencer marketing, sense of the word in B2B. You can't possibly procure, try, use, and promote as many things as you need to be an effective influencer in B2B. But as you say, you've definitely got personalities who have influence based on strong opinions, great evidence, and there's actually a point later on which we think nails that quite nicely. But yeah, it's not influencer marketing in the sense that B2C can be.
Yeah, we can go on to that. We can go on to that in a bit.
Selling on social media apps, I mean, I think we've kind of covered that with the previous point. Yes, of course, in B2C, that's a great opportunity. Now, prospecting on social media, lots and lots of businesses will tell us that's successful. But I think the truth is, or the reality is, that the return on that investment is always going to be, in the lower digits. It takes more and more effort to reach and get a win via those channels, I suspect. But it's a useful tool to have in your arsenal when you're pursuing prospects, when you're helping opportunities make a good decision. So there is some B2B in that result, I dare say.
Yeah.
And then the last one just seems like a strange throwback to 10 years ago.
That is weird, isn't it? A trend. Mobile-friendly website has delivered ROI. Well, yeah.
Maybe lots of people surveyed hadn't yet responded to the fact that Google does this mobile-first indexing and hadn't updated their website until recently, and saw an improvement on their search engine positions when they did. But that is not new. That is not a trend, I don't think. Mobile-friendly websites in B2B anyway is just a must, and in B2C too, surely.
Yeah.
So struggle to understand that one.
Well, now I think about it though, if you didn't have a mobile-friendly website and then you implemented one,
you'd see a huge result.
You'd see great ROI from that.
Yeah.
So actually, I can see this.
It's just not clear to me anyway what would have triggered that now.
Yeah.
In the responses to this report, when mobile-first indexing is not exactly new, mobile responsivity as a factor is not new. Yeah, it's strange, that one.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next chart. So that title's a bit funny, but the second one isn't. So marketers
doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Marketers with effective strategies in 2023 list their top goals for 2024 as, so top one, we've got increasing revenue and sales at 24%, increasing brand awareness and reaching new audiences at 19%, increasing engagement at 19%, improving sales marketing alignment at 16%, and driving traffic to brand website at 15%. Well, I think this is great to see, right? I think marketers are finally coming round to the idea that it's so crucial to focus on revenue and sales. Like that is the North Star goal that should be set for every marketing team. And I think that is represented here. So if you're not doing that, more and more people are doing that and seeing the benefit that it has. So yeah.
Yeah. The first reaction of readers might be like, well, duh. Of course, our objective is to grow revenue and sales. But yeah, so often marketers are, not measured, not focused, not incentivized, not aligned to that actual goal as their KPI. So we hope that this response indicates that more and more people are making it their job, and being given the power and the ability to look that far into the results to optimize what they're doing around it.
Yeah, absolutely. The second one, I'm not surprised to see this actually in there either, because I think so it was increasing brand awareness and reaching new audiences at 19%. Yeah, I'm not surprised. I think more effort and importance is being put on brand and awareness of that. The one thing I worry about is that as a goal, so marketers are listing this in their top goals for 2024. Now, brand awareness is a brilliant thing. Reaching new audiences is a brilliant thing, but it's really hard to measure and quantify the success of that. So, whilst it's a great thing, I think we were saying when we chatted about this, just do it with purpose and meaning when you are doing this. Don't kind of just use brand awareness as a throwaway term, as it can be sometimes, to be honest, blowing budget here. Oh, it's for brand awareness. So we didn't see anything on it, or we won't, because it is hard to measure, but yeah, important nevertheless.
Yeah, we thought that it's worth sort of adding increasing brand awareness amongst our buyers is a good way to clarify and consider the activities you're doing, because there's lots of ways to create brand awareness. It's for, arguably it's very easy, but is it easy to do it in a way that reaches the right people and has the right effect on them? No, that requires purpose and intent, like you said. And we wouldn't like to see brand awareness being used as a sort of scapegoat for other failed marketing initiatives. But yeah, as an outcome, if you can build affinity with the people that you reach, that's really valuable, given the way things are going in terms of volume of marketing that's being created and produced.
Yeah. I think some of these other things are mentioned later on as well. So they were the top two there that we just mentioned anyway. So let's move on to this next set of results, which is interesting, I think, and I like this one as well. So in 2024, marketers want to try out these things: live streaming video at 14%, selling directly on social media at 14%, and creating interactive content like polls and games at 14%.
Well, and don't leave out the fourth stat, which is displayed differently. 16 plan to try experiential marketing. So fascinating, isn't it, how equally distributed all these results are? It's just, you can't make that up, really. It's a really interesting outcome. But I think do you see a clear B2C, B2B divide here?
In some areas, I think. Live streaming video, I think, can work in both areas. Obviously have little experience in B2C, but I think we're live streaming right now, right? So in B2B, I think you're seeing more and more marketers do that as a way to reach a wider audience.
Yeah, and there's a lot of it going on in B2C as well. You're absolutely right. I mean, on Twitch and on TikTok, there's an awful lot of people broadcasting live. Really interesting story I saw today, most recently. There's a streamer that advertises products for 3 seconds each. Literally shows a product and throws it away, and they're doing great. They're going great guns. So yeah, live streaming video, B2C and B2B, it's got potential. We love a bit of live video, obviously. And it's such a good springboard into the other things that you need to create to do effective demand generation today, right? So we would say, take that as a positive.
Yeah, it's definitely got legs. Something to try, I think. Something to try. Selling directly on social media. I mean, who wants to try that in B2B?
Well,
I'd say that,
BDR. I mean, it's not. Yeah, it's a sales thing, not a marketing thing, right?
Yeah.
Salespeople are encouraged, and probably rightly, to use social media as a tool in their arsenal to build a buying committee, et cetera, et cetera. But as a marketing strategy, B2B selling on social media doesn't add up in B2B.
No, but makes perfect sense in B2C.
Yeah.
So I'll maybe lean towards that for that stat. Don't know. That's where I'd go anyway. Creating interactive content like polls and games. I kind of would lean this towards B2C again.
I suspect that those things have had their day in B2B a bit. Like, we're also time poor, information rich, privacy sensitive, and so sort of disaffected with most traditional marketing that I'm not sure there's so much willing to take part in polls, games, surveys and things, for the except where they come from brands that have got some kind of unique reason to sort of earn our support and our trust, I suppose, like this HubSpot one. Yeah, I reckon that's a bit of a...
I'm surprised to see that there at all, to be honest. But hey, it is there. So I'll be interested to see brands that do try that this year and what the results are.
Well, yeah, indeed.
Right.
And experience, again, just B2C, total sense. You would probably struggle in most cases to make it pay in a B2B setting. So,
agree with that. All right, let's move on to the next few sections. So we're in the awareness stage now. So social media, there's a good slide on this, good page. So social media is the place for search, sales, and service is the headline. Should we just look at these stats on the side here a sec?
What do
So
they
we've got
say there?
social search, social selling, and social service. So this is interesting. Social search, right? So social media is the #1 discovery channel for Gen Z and millennials. 31% of consumers use social media to find answers to questions.
Well, yeah, I reckon. Search has had its day in terms of being the point of ideation for people. It's saturated, it's been mastered, it's been taken over by us marketers. And we've seen in B2B, and we know that in B2C, ideas are being formed and opinions are being formed on social media. I'm not so sure that in B2B people are actively searching for solutions, but they are certainly encountering them and discussing them and connecting with them on social media. So maybe there's a difference in behavior between B2C and B2B in terms of who's searching, but it's having an effect in both. And we're seeing, like you say, we are seeing buyers increasingly only turn to search, traditional search, once a certain portion of the discovery process is complete. And that's happened quite often on social media.
Yeah, I think if you take the word social media out of that, it's almost just, people are searching in places before traditional search engines. So whether that be social media, in communities, Reddit, places like this, people want genuine answers that aren't vendor biased.
Right.
So that's my take on that.
Yeah.
Social selling. So 17% of social media users report buying a product on social. 87% of social sellers say it's effective, and 59% say they made more sales on social in 2023 than 2022.
It's really interesting how sales and marketing become blurred sometimes. But
the thing is with that, though, I think when it comes to selling directly on social, like on Instagram and TikTok, that is marketing essentially, because there is no sales, because we're talking B2C.
Agreed.
Interesting. Not surprised, to be honest, that more people are buying in those places, and that it's becoming more popular, that it became more popular as well in 2023 compared to 2022, because I think these channels are pushing that more within the platform as well. You see more ads for products and placements too. Social service. So 19% of social media users reported sending a DM for customer service in 2023. I'm just seeing that as B2C, I think, mostly.
Yeah, I think in B2B, the effect is that because we're used to using certain mediums as consumers, we sometimes prefer them over sort of stilted, outdated mediums of communication in our business roles. So, telephone support, is not most people's preferred channel. They would rather search a knowledge base, send a chat message, even if the response is delayed, because it's akin to messaging with someone on WhatsApp, and in certain situations, businesses that have got WhatsApp channels open, we'll see people use them under certain circumstances. So I think there is a consumerization of support and service in B2B, but it isn't, it's not necessarily for all the same reasons or being used in all the same ways as B2C, where, it happened a few years ago, didn't it? Traditional support for big consumer organizations became so bad that people just turned to Twitter. And then when people ranted on Twitter, they got an immediate response and an immediate reaction. And so it became de facto the best way to raise, support issues. And I think businesses, consumer-facing businesses and business-facing businesses have adapted to that. Those mediums are more effective sometimes.
Yeah. All right, let's dive into this one along the bottom, which is top social channels for marketing. And I think we should dissect this a bit, because at face value, it's interesting, could be misleading unless you just take a bit of time to think about this. So I'm not going to read out every single percentage in here because it's quite a lot, but in order, top social channels for marketing based on the channels they are using and those channels that resulted in the biggest ROI are Facebook first, then Instagram, then YouTube, then TikTok, then X, then LinkedIn, then Snapchat, then Pinterest, then Twitch, then Tumblr. So the reason I would say take this at face value and, you know, dig into it with your own thoughts is that obviously you should only put your effort where your buyers are. And in either a B2C or a B2B environment, to be honest, it's unlikely that your buyers are going to be in every single one of these channels. Probably not on Facebook for B2B, unless you're retargeting. Probably not on Instagram, apart from retargeting. YouTube, potentially. TikTok, we're seeing less of it. Twitter, X, I would say definitely not now, less so anyway, only for creators. And then you've got LinkedIn down there. So,
yeah, it's hard to say with certainty what this set of results would look like if it was separated B2C to B2B, but we can't help but think that LinkedIn would spring up significantly amongst B2B, and that the ROI is well, if there's any B2C respondents in there, that it's being held back by them. And the majority of this looks like it's leaning B2C.
Yeah, I would say so. There's probably crossover in there a little bit, I would say. When you think about advertising, like we know it's cheaper in places like Facebook and Instagram. YouTube is becoming more effective. TikTok too. So potentially some crossover, but yeah, I would say probably leaning more towards B2C in here.
And you've got the question again there about what is ROI, you know, if it's directly attributable purchases, that's not always what you see from from the application of a channel like that to your marketing. So you need to think about the buyer really, and what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to do for them when you're using these platforms. But ultimately clicking, you know, in B2B setting, it's interesting how, well, it's not a social platform, but forget that, Google wouldn't be relevant here. But ultimately, if you put an ad out on social for B2B that says buy our thing now, please, you're typically not going to be able to see a great amount of revenue attributable to that ad, because buyers aren't influenced like that.
Yeah.
B2B buyers don't respond to that. Whereas if you use paid social channels to share content that builds awareness, yes, but more importantly, affinity and trust, you might see the lift in your pipeline, but you won't necessarily see what we would historically or traditionally call measurable ROI.
Yeah, I would say with these channels, just kind of use common sense and research into your target audience and your buyers and what works in your situation, and go off of that first.
Yeah, I mean, and to some degree, I mean, there's a lot of very knowledgeable people on these topics that you should seek out. Maybe we need to share the names of a few, you know, on our LinkedIn. But also trust your own data. You know, like so often marketers' own data tells them what's working and what isn't, and yet we're encouraged to kind of deny the reality sometimes and just spend a little bit more time and money on perfecting the campaign. But you know, go where your data tells you, I think, quite a lot of the time, and push at open doors is what I always say.
Yeah, but if you did want to experiment with new channels, this could be a good place to start and something to look at.
Yeah.
Right, let's move on. So yeah, influencers. We've spoken a little bit on this, but I think the point and the slide that we liked was this one, right? And big headline: partnerships with creators are now indispensable for business growth. Now, I like this, and I do agree with it, actually. I think when it comes to B2B anyway, which is what we're talking about, you don't necessarily have influencers, but you have a whole lot of creators, and you have a whole lot of good creators that like to collaborate with businesses.
Yeah.
And that can be extremely effective.
Yeah, absolutely. You see people, anyone who's willing to put themselves out there, is a valuable asset to a business these days. And, a lot of these creators are within businesses, but doing it because of their own desire. But, tapping into that is incredibly powerful. And, it cuts both ways. That you can make this statement apply in B2C, but it would be more the traditional influencer marketing approach. But in B2B, creators have the ability to, stand out from the mass of, highly orchestrated, highly perfected marketing messages that just we try our best to ignore, and can connect with other people of influence so much more easily than the brand on its own. But it's also, I think this statement points to the power of co-branded marketing, of first-party data, of partnering with other creators in your space to share credible opinion and insight. So a lot of love for that statement.
Yeah, totally agree.
Nice one, Kyle.
Okay, let's move on to this section, which is about, it says SEO, but it's kind of content, I would say, content marketing. Right. So should we talk about this, the challenges stats?
Well, so the challenges that respondents have said they face are finding ideas for new content, creating content that receives high levels of online engagement, creating content that attracts more traffic to your website, reaching your target audience, creating content that generates leads. What I think is interesting is that those to me are, well, they're not new. They've been the challenges marketers have faced when it comes to content marketing anyway, for years and years and years. And in some senses, I'm kind of surprised to hear that marketers are still struggling with those, given how much time we've had to figure it out. But on the other hand, they're the things that never go away. We always need new ideas for content. We never know how well something's going to perform until we've done it. We're constantly on the hunt for things that will bring in the traffic, bring in the interest and the high intent leads. So I think these are just evergreen, not challenges necessarily, just like they're just part of doing content marketing.
Yeah. There are probably some things you can do, though, to help yourself if you are stuck with some of these challenges, like finding ideas for new content. To be honest, I was quite surprised to see that there, because it's not something that I particularly struggle doing, finding ideas for new content. I think when you're consuming so much content out there and talking to so many people, the ideas just kind of flow by themselves. And one thing I think you can do, instead of trying to create an endless list of ideas for new content, is just repurpose what you have. If you are creating content, do more with that one piece of content and focus on a few core messages, chop it up in different ways instead of trying to create something new every time.
I think a very smart marketer said to me, amongst other things, that recently, that they obsess over their customer. And that's probably a good observation, because it's really easy as marketers to get absorbed in the metrics that we have visibility to, treating marketing totally like a science where we're just trying to maximize a number or a result. But like, if you really focus on understanding your buyer, understanding their preferences and how they behave, the challenges, the things that they consume, you shouldn't be short of ideas of how to create useful content for them. And if you create it with the buyer in mind, then the engagement should be at least likely. You can't guarantee it, but you can at least have confidence that you've done the right thing for your buyer. And that's a safe bet, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's move on to the next part. This one just stood out to me. on the content and SEO part still. So the number one most challenging aspect of an SEO professional's job is content strategy and production. I would argue that is probably the most important part of an SEO professional's job as well, especially as you find Google trying to serve higher quality content to buyers that aren't it's not necessarily written for them, it's written for a human itself. Yeah, you'd think that SEO professionals would have nailed the content strategy and production because it is the most important part.
Yeah, you're right. That's an interesting statement. To your point, I don't really see SEO as being separate from content, right, anymore.
Yeah.
You can't really have one with the other. And maybe that's just, that statement reflects to the shift that the industry has seen, where once upon a time, SEO was a standalone discipline that had plenty of need to go in and fix technical SEO problems, that were spot fix opportunities, but those things have become increasingly done for us. It's easier than it ever was, I think, to operate a website, to operate a blog, to operate content in an SEO friendly manner, in a search engine friendly manner. And really the job has now become creating and distributing content to build your search footprint, your organic traffic, against the tide of everything else that's competing for that real estate. So yeah, I think that the challenge has shifted. It is content creation and distribution, interlinking. So maybe that's a reflection of where the industry's at.
Yeah, good point.
Although when you read the rest of the page, you see words like AI, and it may be coloured by the uncertainty that people feel about how to strategize. How do you strategize content when AI is going to change everything in the next 12 months? And to some extent, that's hard to say. To some extent, I'm not sure that it's going to have the big impact that we expect it to in the time frame. Like, it shouldn't change your approach now.
Yeah, stay on top of it for sure and look where it's going. But yeah, for now, the approach you've always been doing and seeing results with, keep doing it.
Yeah.
All right. Search engine journals is kind of just good information rather than stats. Right. So we're in the engagement section now. Okay. So let's talk about this part because this is interesting. Chatbots, AI related things.
Yeah.
So what should we pull out these stats down the side first?
Probably a good way, because I think the challenge with this section is it's fusing a lot of different threads into one, because the headline above talks about very much about human personal connection. Strongest connections happen via call, click, chat, and camera. Yeah, couldn't agree more. That doesn't necessarily, to me, stack up to go all in on AI everywhere, but it's in the detail that the insights come out. So yeah, what stats have we got there?
Yeah, so day-to-day marketing. Right, so this is how marketers are using chatbots. So day-to-day marketing tasks. 36% of marketers are using AI chatbots in their marketing role. 58% of marketers plan to increase their investments in AI and automation, like chatbots, in 2024. Now, AI chatbots.
It's interesting because I don't think of the AI tools that I use day to day as chatbots. When I interact with GPT-4 or Claude or any of the other tools that I use, they're tools. Chatbots, to me, it just takes my mind immediately to the website and to the conversation with the visitor. But that's not what's being said here. People think of GPT-4 as a chatbot. I don't personally, but I think that's where the sort of confusion maybe creeps in.
Yeah, and I'm jumping around a bit here, but I like this last point on customer service and growth because I can see that in B2B as well. So 24% of marketers feel that AI tools that help customer service teams respond to tickets like chatbots, self-service tools, generative AI emails would help their business most. Yes, and I can see that working quite well. You know, if you've got a huge repository of content on your product, it could be,
and and a high volume of inquiries to answer. There's a massive opportunity there, and a very exciting one for the businesses where it makes sense. So in that respect, I agree, and I think buyers in B2B and B2C would respond well to that. Right? There's no specific reason it needs to be a human who pores over a piece of documentation and gives me the relevant piece back if it helps me achieve my task. I'm more than happy for that to be an automated engine.
Same. Yeah, if I asked a question about a specific challenge with a product and the human was just going to send me to this knowledge base article, I'd be more than happy for an AI to do the same thing. Just serve that content to you.
And as a productivity tool for marketers, I mean, AI has got a huge amount of potential. I think applying AI and chatbots carte blanche to the connections that you have with customers doesn't add up to the desire for, human personalized responsive interactions and engagements, but there are places where it has real value.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go on to this and maybe just a couple of minutes on this section, which is messaging, because this is an interesting one for me, especially in the B2B space. So this is all about SMS, I suppose, and there is a lot used in here actually, but I want to dig out some of the stats within this body copy here because I think this is quite interesting. So 87% of marketers plan to continue or increase their investment in mobile messaging through channels like SMS, Facebook Messenger, and WhatsApp. Right. Well, that is kind of not surprising, but I am really keen to see the results that has. And I think this is where we might see a split between B2C and B2B, because I can see, SMS marketing works on me sometimes in a B2C situation as a consumer. As a B2B buyer, absolutely not. I think it's too intrusive. But, if Domino's are sending me 2 for Tuesday codes, I'm all over it. If Dave at vendor X is sending me text messages to book a 30-minute call with him, his number's getting blocked.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's interesting that it's positioned as a personalized channel, and I mean, I suppose in some ways it's the most personalized channel because it's the thing I hold in my hand and no one else does. But it's the most interruptive. It's the most disruptive, and for me as a B2B with a B2B hat on, it's the most unwelcome. So, yeah, I mean, there are good ways to use all things, and there are bad ways to use all things. I urge caution when it comes to SMS messaging in a B2B context.
Yeah, I agree. Even for post-sales things, I'm thinking like in manufacturing here, where you might have like order updates and details. I still don't know how welcome that would be through SMS.
No. Well, you probably should only do that based on permission.
Absolutely, yeah.
And if somebody says, I want to receive those alerts by text message, then great. You're probably adding value to them in that case. But, our first instinct, I think, as marketers anyway, is to automate a channel, use it at scale, and measure the result. And that's where I'd say you've got to be careful with SMS.
Yeah, good point. All right. Email. Okay, so email, it still works, but be ready to adapt. I mean, these stats aren't actually the most interesting for email, but we can pick them up, I suppose.
What's the most interesting stat? I mean, email is just so... I do struggle to understand the longevity of email as a channel. There's just so much of it flying around. It's so poorly done, and you know, even the good ones, the harm done by the bad ones is so grave, is so great that, you know, inboxes are just filtered, ignored, suppressed. You just don't see any of it now, right? It all goes to other places. In this report, there's got to be a lot of B2C people seeing success with email and telling us that actually it's a channel that works for them, which of course it is.
Yeah, well, 87% say they plan to maintain or increase their investment in 2024. Like I said, I can't see that happening.
I've not seen the case studies, the results, the ROI, where an email strategy, you know, is shown to have produced results in B2B. I haven't seen a study like that lately.
No. There was an ROI section in here on email. It might be further down, actually. Here it is. Right, so this is an interesting point that I picked up on, which is around email. I mean, AI has kind of crept into this headline here, but this is firmly on email. So according to the people that were surveyed here, anyway, email has an average ROI of $36 for every $1 spent. And you know what? That stat doesn't surprise me, actually. I am not surprised that the ROI of email is good because it's so cheap.
Well, yeah, you know, not every email costs $1.
No.
Far from it.
Yeah, you're not paying per send. You're not paying per open, per click. You know, spin up your platform. You might buy a list here or you obtain that data, but you're not going to factor that into your ROI cost, I doubt, here. So yeah, seeing that, I'm not surprised.
It's dawned on me that, you know, for lots and lots of businesses, the ones that we see ourselves, the ones that we see reported on by others, the majority of their closed won pipeline comes from buyers who remained anonymous up until the point of expressing intent and interest in a demo or the product itself, meaning you can't email them. You know, B2B buyers are increasingly staying out of the email list and the lead pool, except for the biggest publishers, you know, where they want the content. Most of us can't build an email list and email it and get people to buy as a result. And you've only got to look at your pipeline and where it's coming from to determine whether email is an effective channel for you, I would say. Yeah. And in B2B, you know, unless you're looking at the sort of vanity metrics around email as a sign of success, what's our open rate, what's our click-through rate, what's our deliverability rate, which might look great, the impact on pipeline just so often isn't there.
Yeah, man, we kind of spoke about email before anyway. Okay, right, so we've got a video section here, which is quite interesting because I think, you know, we've kind of spoken about video already and the rise of it from short form perspective anyway. And this kind of just talks more about that. Short form video is the #1 format offering the highest ROI and we'll see the most growth in 2024. A lot of this is just reflecting that, to be honest. So yeah, I would definitely get on the bandwagon when it comes to short form video. Yeah, we kind of mentioned this earlier, didn't we? Yeah, this is one of the points. So this headline, I like it. As search fragments and consumers take their queries to TikTok, Reddit, before Google, growth and social media teams need to forge a new partnership. Yeah, I agree. A lot of things are happening before Google now, like we mentioned before, basically.
I would like to see some data. I might have to look around to see if this exists about, because I'm not so sure it's searching that's taking place. It's discovering, it's encountering, and it's connecting with content that helps you solve problems. But I don't know how much B2B buyers, certainly, but also consumers, actually search within these platforms to find specific things. And I would say that B2C is probably more so, looking for a product, looking for a supplier. But in B2B, I think it's discovery that happens and that shapes search later.
I've seen it. I have seen it, to be honest. If this wasn't TikTok and Reddit, but was communities. I'm seeing it more and more that people are asking in communities for advice on, you know, I need a platform for this, or what do you think of this tool? Has anybody used it? Rather than searching that on Google and potentially looking at biased advice, you don't know where that information's come from. You're getting it from actual human beings who have used this tool and don't have a biased opinion on it.
That's an interesting interpretation of the word search, but I see what you're saying, and I concur. Yeah, I just don't know how often people go to LinkedIn and use the search bar.
No. Yeah, that is I've just thought that is an interesting interpretation of search. But I suppose search, what are you doing when you search? You're searching for an answer.
Searching, and there's more than one way to search, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting. But there's no denying the shift, right? There's no denying the shift. If you want to be found in search by buyers, you've got to reach them first in social.
Yeah. Cool. Right. I think we can fly through some of this stuff because it does talk about similar things. This is probably one of the last points to cover, actually, which is cookies, data, privacy. This is an interesting point because, as we know, Google are hoping to phase out third-party cookies. I think that's this year, actually, because they pushed it back from last year to this year. Need to double check what the latest is on that. But I think it was Q3 this year they want to start phasing it out, but it's pending some approval at the moment. So it's still not approved. But nevertheless, there are people out there banging the drum about making a plan to approach this third-party cookie situation and with it removing. So there's a nice stat here, which is your company working on a plan to approach cookie-free targeting? And we got 3 answers. So not sure at 12%, yes at 47%, and no at 41%. Thoughts on that, Phil? Initial.
Well, there's so many nuances to this debate. I mean, ultimately, you know, buyers have been influencing vendors and to some degree governments to get their privacy back for some time, you know, and we see from a B2B perspective that the majority of buyers that go on to buy hold on to their anonymity, you know, up until the last minute. They don't want to be targeted. They don't want to be in a lead list. You know, they want to be private. And so in essence, we've favored a cookieless approach to marketing, you know, for some time. It's
well, I suppose if we ask ourselves this question, right? Are we working on a plan to approach cookie-free targeting? No,
we're not.
And I suppose go on.
Well, we know that the platforms that we utilize will address this in the best way that they can. It's a really thorny subject, you know, because Google's going to take away third-party cookies, but replace it with another method of targeting people, you know. But for the most part, we prefer marketing that doesn't rely on infringing privacy in a way that is ultimately unwanted, because let's face it, the vast majority of permission that's been given and consent that's been given hasn't been given in a way that the buyer knew, wanted, you know, truly subscribed. It's been obtained, procured, and gathered, you know, one way or another. No, when third parties, we joke, when third party cookies go away, we'll wake up and go to work and carry on, because we're doing marketing in a way that we feel isn't predicated on having that ability to target people in that fine privacy compromising way, I suppose. And you know, if you create and distribute content, you know, distributed to your audience, and you allow them to come to you, you don't need third-party data in the same way. You don't even need first-party data in the same way.
Yes,
you can go zero-party.
Yeah, that was the point I was going to make, actually. If you're marketing in the right way, and the best forms of marketing now don't use third-party data, they don't use first party data. They use, zero party data that requires no data on you at all.
Well, this was interesting, and you helped me understand it yesterday, which is to say, you made me think and realize that what's the difference between zero party and first party? I didn't necessarily, I couldn't necessarily explain that succinctly prior to our conversation yesterday, which is zero party data is the data that buyers have given you explicitly, freely. First party data is the data about those same people, but that's collected by your analytics tools, by your website scripts, and so on. But of course, the point you made is that a lot of people are opting out of cookies on the website. So you don't even have that data about their visit and their journey through your own website anymore. Yeah. You can't track them. And until they convert and tell you who they are and what they're interested in, you've got nothing to go on. But actually, those are the best people to talk to. Those are the people that have done the research, qualified themselves, serious about spending money, and you've got a good shot closing them. So if you do marketing that's aligned to them and aligned to that outcome, you don't need first party. You don't need third party. You don't really need much of anything.
Yeah. I think there's actually so much in here. We should do an episode on what third party cookies mean. And losing them. Yeah, I think there's a lot in here, actually.
Yeah.
A lot of thoughts to have on that. Okay, right. This is looking at more AI things. We might almost be there,
Was there not something on personalization that we wanted to highlight, other than to say that buyers are not impressed by you dropping their first name into subject lines? Personalization, which requires first-party data to do, like email, you can't personalize really very well to people if you don't know who they are. And increasingly, people would rather be anonymous. But personalization outside of B2C e-commerce just hasn't been the landmark innovation that we anticipated. And people are not impressed by the basic level of personalization that most businesses are capable of and able to do. Like I said, dropping in your first name to a subject line or to a landing page hasn't produced night and day difference in the outcomes, right? No. So, and I don't see how personalization and privacy can be combined.
Well, I do in a B2C sense, which obviously some of this data is. When you think about personalized experience after you log in to an app, a shopping app or something like that, having a personalized experience there for you, these are the clothes that we think suit you best, or this is the thing that we think you should have best. That is a hyper-personalized experience to my own shopping, which I think is really effective. From a B2B standpoint, not seeing it.
No, and we talked about ABM being a place where you can exercise some personalization tactics.
Yeah.
But again, at the account level, not the individual level, probably to the most effect, because it's probably a deterrent these days to see your name or your job title or things of that nature. Just
you almost know, don't you? You almost know that.
Text.
Yeah, you almost know this has been, this is a blasted email that's just got a few tokens in of my data.
There was a brief moment in time where marketers were able to do like literally personalized advertising, right? Targeting was so available, like you could target people so accurately that you could put the company name or in an ad on the side of LinkedIn, for example. Oh, that's really crossing the line, I think, crossing the boundary. And it probably had a great impact the first time someone did it, but then fell off a cliff after that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. We spoke a bit about AI already.
Yeah. Just don't confuse, the applications, I think, is the key when looking at this data, And well, I mean, there was the SEMrush report about the effectiveness of AI generated content the other day, which we talked about, great interest. I think marketers using AI tool. Well, here you go, the pie chart, right? We agree with the findings of the pie chart. Most people are using AI to as a productivity tool to aid their creation of ideas, to find inspiration, to rough out the structure of content, to draft parts of it. I would hope not all parts of it, but few are using it to write content verbatim, and that's the key. That's the key.
Yeah, I don't think it can be relied on to write content that you then hit publish on straight away. It's just not there yet. But absolutely for ideas, inspiration, outlines, even to draft in some cases, yeah, why not? Because it increases productivity.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. So this, is potentially one of the last points. Right. So we're on to kind of like marketing operation system tools here. So seeking a single source of truth is the headline. I suppose we could focus on these stats here because I think these are quite interesting. So 26% of marketers say data increases the ROI of their marketing efforts. 93% of marketers with a single source of truth say it's beneficial to their organization. 1 in 4 marketers say their marketing data is fully integrated with their tools.
Yeah. I mean, I think we agree and believe that the best marketing is done when marketers are able to see their impact at a pipeline level, right? And ideally optimize around the things that produce pipeline. And in so many organizations, that's hard or impossible to do because of disconnected systems and the lack of a single customer view. So if you're in a position to implement a platform that can afford you that end-to-end visibility, you're in a stronger position to do better marketing. You still need to align teams, goals, stakeholders, et cetera, to allow you to do the right things. But it's a piece of the puzzle that you're better off having in place than not. And my experience of integrated platforms is they just so often fall short of the hope and the aspiration in terms of seamless visibility of data, that I think it's hard not to prefer a single integrated platform for that, because ultimately, an oversupply of data, tools, systems, technologies isn't a good thing for marketers, I don't think. I think it's a distraction. We can absolutely surround ourselves and overwhelm ourselves in data points. It doesn't make us any better at interpreting them or developing or executing strategies off the back. Most of those tools don't have AI in them yet to the point that they can advise us.
Yeah.
They can help us to be productive within them, but they can't tell you what to do with all this customer journey data. You've got to do that yourselves. So I think it's about striking a balance between having visibility, data at your fingertips, and doing marketing that's really informed by and optimized for the buyer outcomes and experience that you're trying to build.
Yeah. And just to focus on that middle stat, 93% of marketers with a single source of truth say it's beneficial to their organization. Well, yeah, absolutely, because then every single team is, working off of that one source of truth, which makes total sense. You understand what's happening at a contact level, at an account level. Everything can be aligned around that. You've got no missing data sets out of anything. You haven't got sales looking at one thing, marketing looking at another, customer success looking at another. So makes total sense. And I think there was something on that later down in here.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
You'd be hard pushed, credit to HubSpot, you'd be hard for push to find a platform that's easier to implement, that gives you a single customer view than HubSpot. They've done a great job of building a connected ecosystem of tools that does just that.
Yeah, and this was kind of what I was on about. Marketing, that word's come back again. Been around a while. It's now come back, but yes, marketing. So sales and marketing alignment. And they've said sales and marketing alignment starts with centralized data. And yeah, it's absolutely true. And the top sales and marketing alignment challenges listed here are a lack of effective communication between teams, sales and marketing teams using different tools, difficulty sharing data between teams. Yeah, it's all the stuff we've kind of said, I suppose.
It is, although I would say that there's a key thing missing from that, which is all of that is great, but pointless if you aren't aligned to the same goals. And I don't think it's time between those teams spent discussing and talking and coming up with campaigns together that makes the difference. It's being focused on, honest about, and laser focused on the same result, the same outcome that will potentially inform you in such a way that it produces radical change in your go-to-market. And we've seen businesses do it, talk about it, get off the MQL hamster wheel, get off the performance metric train, and start doing marketing in ways that builds affinity and generates those high intent leads, maybe at lower volume but at much higher close rate, because sales and marketing start looking at and talking about the same data.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I don't think I have much more to say on that point, actually. So shall we? Yeah, that's the end. Takeaways.
Good stuff.
Yeah, there we are.
It's a very interesting report, made challenging to dissect because of the combination of B2B and B2C data, but as always, some really interesting insights and takeaways that you'd be hard pressed to gather yourselves. So a good one to refer to. Yeah,
and interestingly, I've just seen, for some reason, StreamYard does this thing where I think if you've got a certain setting on your LinkedIn account, it doesn't bring up the name, but we can see afterwards. And somebody said a single source of truth / data is a challenge for us at the moment. So what would your response be to that, Phil?
Yeah, it's interesting, and we make all our own problems in life, don't we, people? And it's only challenging if you aren't if you're not able to move all the pieces on the board. But so often that's the case. We're told over and over again that integrating systems is easy. It's not. It's always hard. And getting to a single source of truth with integrated systems, I think, is very, very difficult for businesses. However, if you're in a luxurious position to adopt a single platform, whatever that platform is, then a single source of truth and a single source of data shouldn't be out of reach. But yeah, it's kind of, it's a tad frustrating just how hard we make it for ourselves to get to that goal, which we all agree is so impactful and important.
Yes.
That's
it's worth it, isn't it? It's definitely worth.
So, but all I can say is, like, if you can keep up, if you can keep moving towards it, if you don't give up, then please do, because the end result is really worth it.
Yeah. All right. I think that's probably a nice point to end on, unless you have anything else.
No, thanks for the question. The comment. A very nice way to end. And no, nothing else from me.
Cool. All right, let's wrap it up there. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode of Demand Decoded. Be sure to follow the Blend LinkedIn page for any future live events, and catch other episodes on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere really. Just search for Demand Decoded and we'll be there. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks a lot.